This is a factual account of David Austin's winter journey from Derby to the Scottish Highlands back in 2011. We will follow his route and timeline using only confirmed reporting and first-hand statements. He set out to spend a year living simply in remote rural country. Many think about such a plan, few attempt it. Here we record what is known about David. In November 2011, aged 28, David told his family he planned to spend a year alone in the Scottish Highlands. He'd been working towards this for some time, taking outdoor survival and bushcraft courses to build practical skills for living outdoors. Family and friends urged him not to go, but he wanted a genuinely remote setting where he could rely on his own bushcraft skills, shelter building, starting fires, and basic foraging. Later, media coverage labelled the idea as Bear Grylls style, but the simpler description is a long solitary year in wild country, the call of the wild. He was thought not to have taken a mobile phone, and signal in the place he was heading for would have been unreliable in any case. With the plan set and the destination chosen for its remoteness, he travelled north to begin the trip in the Highlands. Services at this time typically ran via Sheffield and onwards to Glasgow and Edinburgh. The journey to Glasgow Queen Street would have taken David several hours. Temperatures across the UK in early December 2011 were already low, with reports of cold and extremely wet weather. On arrival in Glasgow, he transferred to the West Highland line at Queen Street Station. Winter days in Glasgow are short, with long hours of darkness and frequent rain. The line to Rannoch passes northwest, leaving the city and heading through the Highlands. Rannoch Moor is an expanse of about 50 square miles, a plateau sitting just over 1,000 feet in elevation. Its surface is scattered and scarred with lochs, peat bogs and streams, and it's ringed by mountains rising over 3,000 feet to the southeast and west. The West Highland rail line runs across its southeast side, passing through Rannoch Station and Carrower Station, remote, wild places isolated within the vastness of this foreboding landscape. David disembarked at Carrower Station, a remote stop on the West Highland line. In winter, the area is exposed and often severely cold, with daylight fading quickly. To the northeast are the lights of Lochosian Youth Hostel and Carrower Estate. For anyone unaccustomed, the isolation here can feel daunting, as I know firsthand, having hiked and bivvied out in this area during winter. It's not for the faint-hearted. As David left Carrower Station, he headed for Lochosian in the northeast along a rugged track to pitch his tent in the woods on the north side of the loch. It's not known exactly where he pitched his tent. There's some fantastic sandy beaches and bays on the north side of the loch, but you'd imagine it would be too exposed there in winter conditions, and he would have hunkered down in the woods beyond that. David spends his 29th birthday on the 3rd of December 2011 alone in the woods north of Lochosian during heavy snowfall. He breaks camp and makes his way to the light on the other side of the loch, the youth hostel, where he meets hostel workers there and tells them he's been camping on the north side of the loch. Upon leaving the hostel, David heads back to the station and railway line where he'd arrived only days before, and instead of taking the route northwards to Loch Triag and known bothies there where it could have provided David with shelter, Stanig and Maenach bothy, David heads south into the open expanse of the Rannoch Moor. Just to the north in Loch Triag, 2 hills away, only 5 kilometres away, a hermit's been living in the woods there for the last 20 years plus, in a handmade shelter where he catches his own fish and chops his own firewood, supplemented by local trips to the shop. David decided to head south into a bleak, wet landscape in a blizzard. From Carrower, David could have worked his way south across Rannoch Moor along the railway line directly, or taken the track closer to Loch Ossian. Either way, within a short period of time, he would have reached the ruin of Lubnaclach Cottage, where the track ends and Rannoch Moor begins. From here, there's no way to traverse the bogs on foot. His only chance of finding shelter and safety would be to follow the railway line, albeit illegally, southwards towards Rannoch Station. From this point, Rannoch Station is around 9 kilometres away, 5.5 miles. So in poor snow conditions, it could be, 2.5, 3 hour walk. After probably an hour or two, possibly longer, in deep snow, David arrives at a railway workers' maintenance shed adjacent to the track. He decides to take shelter there, as he's likely wet and cold, potentially already suffering from hypothermia. On Hogmanay, 31st of December 2011, at 9:50 a.m, maintenance workers from Rannoch Station make their way along the track. As the workers arrive at the hut for a routine inspection, they find David's grisly remains inside. 4 weeks after he had left Loch Ossian Youth Hostel and last spoke to the workers there. British Transport Police note no suspicious circumstances with David's death. His case passed to the Procurator Fiscal. The cause reported was hypothermia, and his body was believed to have been in the hut for weeks. David may only have survived Carrower for a handful of days between his arrival at Carrower Station, his camp at Loch Ossian, where he met staff at the Loch Ossian Youth Hostel, and his foray to the maintenance shed. What David's journey highlights is that Scotland can be inhospitable, and it can take something like wet clothing for the onset of hypothermia, and from that point it's a losing battle. David Austin was not a fantasist, and I can't imagine he realistically intended to live off the land in the Highlands in winter, which is almost impossible. He set out to live rough for a year, as others have done, and was reported to be experienced and well equipped. Hypothermia impairs judgment and likely led to his death. It seems likely that the series of small navigational misjudgments combined with the extremely harsh conditions and wet clothing proved fatal. The reports comparing David to some Bear Grylls challenge enthusiast were misleading and unfair, added only as a media hook. He was not acting out survival stunts but attempting a sustained rough living trip in the wild Scottish Highlands. Tragically, when he died, he was only about 30 minutes walk from Rannoch Station, where safety and warmth were within reach.